Hi, this is Sherry Schreiber of GettingBetter.com with some more naked truth for you. Well, I've been asked to do a video on what I know about death. And I've had the really good fortune to have known several people who've clinically died and lived to come back and tell me about it. So I want to share this naked truth with you because, well, isn't this the age-old concern for all of us? What happens to us when we die? You may be comforted in learning that the soul doesn't die. So you're going to be around for a long time. That could be the bad news and it could be the good news. But you're going to be around for a long time. And hopefully through each lifetime we keep reaching a better version of ourselves and growing and changing and healing so that we can live an optimal life. My dear friend Darlene Jamin, who is unfortunately dead now, she succumbed to bone cancer. After a long bout of lung cancer. She used to be a smoker. Darlene came on my TV cable show for public access. I used to host and produce my own show called Speakeasy, and Darlene was a guest of mine on that show, and we talked about her near-death experience. And she died in a drowning incident. She actually hyperventilated underwater and drowned. And she was talking with me and my television audience all about that, telling us really what she experienced and what she felt throughout that process and what that was like for her. So I want to share that with you today. When Darlene was hyperventilating underwater, she said her cells, she could hear her body cells screaming for oxygen, and she couldn't get any. So she finally decided, okay, this is it. This is the end of my rope, and I'm going to surrender to this. I'm not going to fight it anymore. And then she said the most amazing thing happened. She said, I felt myself being propelled through the water at such a rapid speed. She said it was so fast. It was as if I was in slow motion. And she said, we were just going through the water at this rapid pace. And all these beautiful little bubbles were surrounding us. And I said, wait a minute, time out. What's this we stuff? She said, Sherry, aloneness is what we experience in this physical life. But on the other side of this physical life, we're not alone. And I said, well, what are you meaning by that? She said, I felt like I was in the arms of God. I'm getting a little emotional here. And she said, I was just being carried and propelled through this water in the arms of God, surrounded by all these beautiful, beautiful thousands of little bubbles. And then her diving partner discovered that she had collapsed and brought her up to the surface, and she was resuscitated. And she lived. She did a lot of volunteer work with AIDS patients, sort of helping them step into the next leg of their journey ushering them into a fearless death, if you will. And she just volunteered her time to these people. Years ago, I knew a woman. She was actually a client of mine when I was in the beauty business. And she had a very, very serious car accident one day. And she was killed in that accident. And the paramedics came and they were trying to resuscitate her. And they had her for a moment and then she slipped out again. Ultimately, they resuscitated her a second time and she came back into her really pain-racked body. It was all broken up. I mean, she broke her sternum. Teeth were knocked out of her head. Her pelvis was crushed in this car accident. It was a really serious accident. And 2 of her young children were in the back seat at the time with her. Fortunately, they were not injured. They were in restraints and car seats, etc., like you're supposed to carry a child in an automobile. They were not harmed. But she was so badly banged up that she just slipped out. And what she said to me was, while the paramedics were working on me, I was floating above my body. I could see the whole entire scene. I was floating above my body. I was watching them try to resuscitate me. And all this commotion going on. She said, but when I slipped out the second time, she said, I felt myself going through this tunnel of bright light. And at the end of this tunnel was this bright, beautiful, loving energy, this bright light. She said, but the tunnel was like all these beautiful colors of phosphorescent light. Beautiful colors. And I was just going toward that bright, loving light. And that's all I cared about. I just wanted to get to that light. Nothing else mattered to me. And I said, but what about your kids? I mean, this was a devoted mother. She had like 5 little kids. And she was, the role of mother was her favorite thing in the world. I said, what about your kids? Weren't you concerned about them? She said, Sherry, all I can tell you is when I was heading toward that bright, loving light, it's all that mattered to me. Nothing else mattered. I sensed that my children would be okay, that they were going to be okay without me. But I did not want to come back into my body. She said, once I got through that tunnel, I was in this place where I was kind of gliding along, kind of on a grassy knoll, but I wasn't walking. It wasn't the sensation of walking. It was like I was gliding. And she said there were people on either side of me that I knew, that I recognized, who had died during the course of my lifetime. And she said they were smiling at me and greeting me and welcoming me on both sides of me. And she said, I was at peace. I felt very peaceful. I felt complete. I felt at peace. I wasn't worried. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't scared. I was just in this new place. And it was kind of wonderful. And then she was brought back into her body And of course, this excruciating pain from all these broken bones and having teeth knocked out of her face. And rushed to the hospital in this ambulance. And she recovered. It was a long recovery. It was a painful recovery. It was a lot of repair work her body had to do. But I feel so blessed that she shared this story of hers with me. Because in that moment, in the moment listening to my dear friend Darlene, and in the moments listening to other people I've known who've died and come back to tell about it, it has resolved my fear and trepidation about death. When Darlene's lung cancer, they'd operated on her, took out a lot of it, but some remained and then metastasized to other parts of her body, including her bones. I asked a question that I already knew the answer to. I said, do you have any fear about this upcoming death? Now that this has spread to your bones and you're on a lot of medication and the quality of your life has been compromised. And she said, oh, Sherry. She said, honey, dying is easy. It's living that's hard. She said, I've been there, done that. Trust me. Dying is easy. It's living that's hard. It's being in the physical form. It's being in this body and having to cope with disappointment and pain and torment. She said, but dying's easy. Dying's a snap. It's a cinch. I do believe she took herself out. I do believe that she wanted to die with dignity and took herself out. I think she planned it. At one point, she asked me if I would help her with her exit strategy. And at first, I agreed. And then I said, no, I've changed my mind. I'm really sorry. Because at the time, it went against my personal principles and how I'd seen that she had lived her life and she had some self-destructive tendencies. And I felt that this was a journey that she should probably navigate on her own. Death. A lot of people have told me, I'm so afraid of dying. I'm so afraid of dying. I'm so afraid of dying. But if I've had the opportunity to work with them for a while, I've recognized that that's not really the fear. The fear is that they're afraid of really living and grabbing joy out of this existence, taking risks, calculated risks, taking chances that will very likely improve and enhance their existence. They're really afraid of living. And I think that's tragic, really. I think it's just tragic. We're all afraid of something. I was afraid of starting to record these videos and posting them to the internet. I was terrified. I thought about it literally for years, I'm sure. And I just couldn't seem to work up the courage and therefore the enthusiasm to do this. But once I decided to start recording these things and not hold my feet to the fire in terms of uploading them to YouTube, I started watching them and deciding that they were kind of worthy of being uploaded. And valuable. The things I talk to you about in my videos are the very things I've talked to my clients about for years and help them learn about and help them turn their life around. So the materials in my videos are really designed to help you redirect your path and heal and get well and whole and healthy and content and happy. Many people have a death wish. They're really hard on themselves. They eviscerate themselves every single day. And they've been doing this since they're about 2 years old, around the time they gain vocabulary. Don't do that. I have video on how to stop that. We're here for a time. We're not sure how long. I have a feeling I'm going to live into my 90s. Maybe 93. Seems like a good number. But I don't have any guarantees. I tried to resolve and heal my emotional issues in this lifetime so that my physical body stays strong and healthy and well and vibrant. I've done a pretty decent job of that so far, and I hope you will too. But my dear, when your body dies, when you surrender this body finally, however it is you do that, you do not cease to exist. I have a first cousin, and we chuckled a little bit together. We hadn't spoken in years, but my Uncle George, her father, had died, and he was one of these stalwart guys he was an attorney during his career, and he just believed when you're dead, you're dead. That's it. That's the end of the road. You just cease to exist. There's nothing that remains. Turns out my cousin and I, his daughter, and I, even though we hadn't had contact, we're about 4 months apart in age. She's a tiny bit younger than I. Turns out we had evolved spiritually to basically the same place. She believed very much like I did that the soul lives on, and that whatever wisdom we have in each lifetime is cumulative. In other words, maybe over the course of a number of lifetimes, we've gained that wisdom and it's just stuck with us. I have a lot of intuitive medical wisdom in this lifetime, stuff I've never been directly exposed to in this life, this time around. I know I've been a guy. I've had a major case of penis envy in this life. And have always treated the men in my life like I'd want to be treated if I owned a penis. And my relationships have been harmonious and loving. I've had boyfriends say to me, Schreiber, you couldn't understand men any more than you do if you owned a penis. And I'm thinking, little do you know. Because I'm pretty sure I have. But the point I'm trying to make to you is, this ain't the end of the road, folks. It isn't. It's just not. I think we continue to learn when we're on the other side of this physical life. I think we continue to learn, evolve, and grow. When I read the book Many Lives, Many Masters, it was an eye-opener. I really liked that book. It's not religious, although it has a religious-sounding title. There are books called things like Life After Life. If you're curious about near-death experience and what goes on in the non-physical, many accounts. There's even a book written that was culled from dozens, maybe hundreds of interviews with children who'd had near-death experiences. And they all reported almost identical stories of what that was like for them. So don't fear death. Do what you want to do while you're still in this body and it's alive and you're able to get around. But don't fear death. Death is easy. It's living. It's a bit challenging at times. So try and think of yourself as this soul that's going through numerous journeys. And try and think of yourself, rather than being a human being that occasionally gets to have spiritual experiences, try and think of yourself as a spiritual being who is in some ways encased and entrapped in this human body, this physical body, who's at times having to have some unpleasant human experiences, and maybe some joyful ones too. But that's how I've come to think of myself. Every now and then, life is a pain in the ass. It throws me a curveball. I don't like it. I grumble about it. I shake my fist at the sky about it. But I try to remember I've been here many, many times. I'm pretty certain I'm an old soul. And my spiritual self, my soul self, continues to evolve. And that's a good thing. But every now and then, I'm having to tolerate some very human being experiences. This helps us put things into perspective a little bit. Whatever's troubling you right now, my darlings, in 5-10 years, it ain't going to matter. You're probably not even going to remember it. That is, if you get to work on healing and growing and expanding and evolving as best you can while you have the chance in this body. I'm hoping that this takes some of the fear out of moving on to the next leg of your journey when it becomes time for you to surrender this physical body. And that some of this makes sense to you. Goodbye for now, and God bless.